automatic AK-15 or whatever.
Doing that.
He could literally buy it cash and not have it himself called in. You don't have to identify yourself.
Possibility is it is an actuality. You know, it could occur. You know, it's an actual
you're saying, from what you're telling me, Rich, the woman in California, she passed every check in balance and everything that safeguard.
Yeah, because if you're not in the system as a convicted felon, and this is probably true in most states, if you're not in the system, either as a registered mental person or, you know, a convicted felon, I mean, they're going to sell you a gun. You know, virtually any pawn shop or gun dealer is going to do it.
Yeah, if you have no problem and paperwork behind your name, then, yeah, you're good to go. Cash is king. Isn't that amazing?
Well, I'm sure you can walk to any number of flea markets right here in Texas and pretty well buy a gun with no questions asked. I know that could have been done here some years ago.
I'm a convicted felon. I know a couple places I could probably purchase a gun.
Right.
I mean, I can go and ask that question. And
because we live in that culture. This is a gun culture. The United States was built on private citizens owning guns, and that you're never going to be able to take the guns away. And they need to forget that. You know, Second Amendment's here to stay.
Yeah. Right. And then the people who want to put it down want to say on that Second Amendment, like, you know, no, that was built for the militia days. Well, you know what? It ain't going to hurt to update the wording just on those. I mean, I don't know why we can't do a revisionary document that is just as, you know, all agreed on and just revised to clarify, damn it, for the times change. Because, I mean, shit, refrigerators got invented in between now and then, even steam happens in between now and then. I mean,
you're exactly right. And people are killing me with this argument that it's built in to protect yourself from a government taking you away. Well, look at what happened in Waco. That guy had all these.
Right now, we're trying to protect ourselves from being in a mass shooting that wasn't really necessarily. It wasn't really necessary to happen. It could have been prevented. You know, I mean, so that's what we're doing now. So in the same essence that they were building a militia against a governmental oppression, excuse me, I'm giving myself a personal challenge to go against the the serial oppression, the serial killer oppression. It's like ridiculous because, I mean, it just continuously keeps on happening. And, I mean, that's what's happening to everywhere, apparently. So why are we not an army against that real quick and just change it up? It's not even changing it. Everyone can ask about it. Shoot, get me in there. I love the dictionary. We got this. I mean, we can make it the same damn words and mean the same exact thing or give a definition to help today.
The way I feel is it's outdated. It's irrelevant because if the government in this day and age wants to take you away, take your property, take all your guns, you better have a tank, a couple of rocket launchers, maybe even a couple of missiles in your backyard because, you know, the guy in Waco, it didn't do him any good. He had a whole stash. He was an arms dealer. What did they do? They surrounded him with tanks and finished him and his compound off. Boom, boom, boom.
Well, yeah,
so the argument that I got to have an AK-15 in my back pocket along with a 9mm in my boot to keep me from an evil government, that doesn't fly with me. Because the government.
Well, yeah, there's a bigger problem than the damn gun control, if that's the case, indeed, and it is the case. I feel in every single day for every single person, unless you're part of the problem.
And most people don't bond in the militias in this day and age. Most people are every man for themselves, you know. And I doubt that gun ownership. You know, a bunch of guys are going to get together and fight the federal government with all their high-tech weapons. I'm sorry, that's not going to work. I was in the defense business for a lot of years, and it ain't going to work, man. You know, they got smart bombs that can follow you around.
Many of the people, Dan, who are going to Idaho or Montana to get off the grid to, you know, basically live the life in the woods in the log cabin and just get away from the city and from civilization, many of those people are not, as you say, organized in terms of any type of groupism. It's a very individual thing, very individualistic thing.
They're not going to bond together and fight. This is not the colonial days where everybody knew each other, you know, and they all were tobacco farmers and they all had muskets. And when the British came off the boat, they were ready for them. You know, it ain't the same thing, you know. And so,
Dan, I'd like to take a moment to welcome a new caller. Good evening, Texas.
Yeah, hello there. Dave is my name.
Well, good to hear from you. We have been discussing the YouTube shooter and of course gun violence in general. And we're discussing the woman who shot 3 different people and then herself at the YouTube headquarters the other day. So thank you for calling into the show.
Oh yeah, it's my first time to call in. It's my pleasure just to tune in to some community calls. Not much of a social creature. I'm actually an over-the-road truck driver.
Well, we're glad to have you here. In traveling around the country, what are some of the sentiments that you've seen and heard concerning these type of shooting incidents that seem to be happening with so much frequency here in this country?
Oh, I don't know if I don't even have any awareness of the YouTube shooter that you just mentioned.
Happened earlier this week on Tuesday. It was a disgruntled woman, an Iranian, a Persian woman who was upset with YouTube and apparently obviously had some mental issues as well, and she drove from her home near San Diego 500 miles all the way to San Bruno in Northern California and opened fire there at the YouTube headquarters, shooting 2 women and 1 man, all of whom, survived but were wounded. And then, of course, she turned the 9mm on herself and committed suicide as the police closed in. But it was a horrific incident, and once again, a highly publicized major shooting event.
Yeah,
well, I was just going to say good night because it's after 9 o'clock. Oh, I think.
Well, Dan, I appreciate you being on tonight, and thank you for calling in.
All right.
Great. But, continue on, and it was a good show. Thank you for having me. We'll get together again soon. Okay?
I look forward to it, Dan.
Good night, Dan.
Have a great evening,
Dan. Bye-bye.
But, David, I can go ahead and extend the show a few minutes longer since you just called in. And
I saw that you were live broadcasting on Talk Shoe. I'd never tuned into the show before. I figured, might as well just call in to see what you're talking about.
I'm glad that you did. Well, I always like having new callers every week, and we have a different topic every week, and this usually a newsworthy event will be the topic of the show, something that, that's happened that week, that or something political. I've done a few shows about the North Korea situation, and this type of thing. So, thank you for being here tonight.
Well, I'll do my best. I'll tune in a little earlier next time.
Oh, hey, that's all right.
Tell me a little about your truck driving. So you go all over the country? Do you hit many different states?
Oh, yeah. They pretty much send me 50 states wherever they need me to head to. That's
always been a really good career, being a truck driver. I understand nowadays it's maybe a little harder than it used to be. Maybe you don't make as much money as maybe 15, 20 years ago. How have things changed in the truck driving industry?
Well, you're right. The money's not there anymore. Even if you're independent, you're working your butt off to make $120,000, $150,000 a year. You're working your butt off. But if you're a company driver, you're making on an average, just averagely, you're making $49,000, $52,000 a year, just depending on how hard you want to run. Some company drivers actually can, do a lot of hustle, get a lot of miles, and make up to $60,000, $65,000 a year. But you literally have to get on the stick, just drive, and it's just not worth it anymore. But we do have it better because we got better trucks, air conditioning, power, everything. They're much lighter trucks. They're greater on the fuel.
I bet they're nicer in the cabs too. My daddy was a truck driver for 26 or 28 years, I believe. I can't remember. But heck yeah, a nicer truck. I've noticed that the front ends have been, changing over the years.
Oh, yeah. It's probably more comfortable now, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff's computer controlled now. You've got your safety sensors for collision purposes, lane control. The computer actually controls your comfort in the cab. So, I mean, because they don't, this company doesn't, I mean, it's the largest company, but it doesn't run APUs on the truck. It actually just has the system take care of itself. When it needs to cool down, the computer will crank the truck up by itself.
Huh.
Just to maintain your ambient temperature comfort level, they call it. Kind of nice.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. And plus the trucks, a lot of them are going automatic now. You're not even having to shift the truck anymore. It's got automatic transmissions.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And
look at there. Little old me, I can drive a truck.
That's true.
I love to drive around. Oh, my goodness.
But you got to figure, though, I mean, most people don't know it. You don't just drive a truck. You've got at least a 3-page, at least a 2 full-page job description that you're doing on a daily, weekly basis.
Oh, yeah. No, like I said, my dad, he was truck. We lived that lifestyle.
You're gonna work the full 6 to 7 days every week. And, Till you put in for 2 or 3 4 days off, whatever you need.
David, I have another area.
Oh yeah.
David, I have another area I'd like to explore. I also do YouTube videos, and I interviewed a woman trucker who retired after 25 years driving a truck. And she told me about all the horrendous wrecks and accidents that she had seen during that 25-year period on the road. And I would imagine that you've seen some things, too. So if you'd like to share with us some accident scenes that you've personally seen, I think listeners would enjoy hearing that. Tell us some of the things that you've seen.
Well, actually, I've not witnessed any big truck accidents. Now, I have come up and been on the scene after they happened, coming up to the highway, come to a stop.
Yeah.
But I've seen some really bad wrecks on the interstate. Trucks laid over, they fell asleep, lost control, wind pushed them off the road. Never can really actually determine. It takes time for these investigators to determine actually how the accident happened. Was it preventable? There's a myriad of reasons why something like that could go wrong. The wind itself nowadays with these lightweight trucks can actually push you out of your lane. Because they build these trucks so lightweight anymore, just to get that fuel mileage. And 30-mile-an-hour wind with 40-mile-an-hour gusts, it can take its toll if you've got a light load and it's hitting you right from the side. It can be dangerous out here if you're not fully awake, if you're not fully rested for your drive shift. You can be the cause of a major loss of life out there.
Right. It's I was always
really got to be on top of your game. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you got to pay attention to all of it all the time. And
so how long have you had your show going on?
I've been doing this show now for about 3 years. I do it almost every Saturday night. So I'll take some Saturday nights off occasionally, but generally speaking, it's weekly. And I usually have a scheduled guest who comes on. Now, this evening, Dan Patrick from Florida, he's an e-commerce professor, but he's a return guest. He's been on many of my shows in the past. And, because a few weeks ago there was the Florida shooter, and that's in his neck of the woods, and he was on when we did the Florida shooter. Well, it seemed natural for him to be my guest tonight discussing the YouTube shooter earlier this week. And so that's what tonight's was. And then I have callers, literally from all over the country. Sometimes I have callers from Illinois and from various other states that will call in. So, yeah, I really, really enjoy this. And then quite often, if the content is good, and most of the time it is, I will also make a YouTube video or two from the best parts of the show. So, look for this to be on YouTube, too, elements of it as well.
Sure. How do you search it to find it on YouTube?
Well, you go to my channel there, which is Richard Vernadeau channel. I'll spell that last name for you because it's a French name, and it's kind of hard to spell if you don't know how. It's Vernadeau.
Okay. I got it. Yeah, I grew up in Houston. I'm familiar with a lot of the Louisiana spelling.
My dad was from Louisiana, as a matter of fact. My dad was from Amite, Louisiana, but he worked all over Texas, including the Beaumont Orange area. And my sister, who passed away 2 years ago, my sister lived in Texas City, Lamarck, which is not all that far from Houston. She used to go to Houston nearly every week, in fact. She had her own insurance company and her own dance studio, and she was there in the Texas City, Lamarck area for the past 35, 40 years. And they had her funeral in Galveston, and we went down, my brother and I, to the funeral, and that was my first time in Galveston in about 20 years, but near Galveston Bay. And, of course, the circumstances weren't good, but, I was able to take and spend a couple of days in Galveston, which was nice.
Yeah, that sure is a huge area, trucking area.
Well, and
all across Texas.
Yeah. Well, and Houston's just gotten humongously big. Now, did you, in your driving, did you get to see any of the devastation from the terrible flooding that happened down there after the hurricane in Houston?
No. Like I said, I drive 48 states, so I actually wasn't down there during that time.
I bet you're glad you weren't. Yeah.
I was out in California when they had those fires that were coming across towards the end of I-80 there. It's just wow. But I wasn't very close to it. Knowing that atrocities going on, people are hurting over that. We do tune into the news as we're driving sometimes, so we know pretty much what's going on.
David, I'd like to take a second to welcome a new caller to the show. Good evening, Northeast Texas.
Good evening. Is the show still going?
It's still going. We're going to run about another 30 minutes because I have a new caller. This is his first time to call in. Again, I want to welcome you, David. Thanks for calling. And as we're still, in general, we're discussing a lot of different things now, but earlier in the evening we were covering the YouTube shooter. And if you, Northeast Texas, would like to weigh in on anything that we've discussed tonight, or even something that you're researching or working on, well, feel free.
Well, I just wondered if anybody called in blaming Iran for the YouTube shooter incident.
That hasn't happened yet. That hasn't, even though she was, Persian, she was of Iranian descent. No one has done that tonight. We've all decided, everyone that called in tonight, we all agree that the woman simply was unbalanced and that, she was obviously mentally disturbed, and she became so upset and angry with YouTube, she just went over the deep end.
Yeah, I agree. I'm surprised people are not blaming Iran for us attack on our sovereign business system and meddling in our business.
Yeah.
There may be somebody out there that has that opinion, but at least nobody called in with that tonight.
Well, you got to live in the, land of ish and the world of assumption like I do, and just assume that they're all out there. All of them that believe everything else.